Establish a series of forts to try and contain the rebels in the hills. And we saw one of those forts yesterday, Fort Usher number 3, which Baden Powell determined the site. So we come to the end of July, and the Matabeleland Relief Force has now decided to concentrate its efforts on the eastern end of the Maclocus, where we are today. They established a camp on the site. Now this fort, which Mrs. Vickery is going to go on to, was only established later. But they established a camp on the site. The camp was called Sugarbush Camp. Now, there was only one more battle left in the rebellion, and we're going to the site later. Now again, you can see, just like Fort Usher number 3, just like the base camp, the ground is very open. The Matabele were concentrated towards the south, in that direction. But this country is a bit more broken than the country around Incantola. There were 3 principal, I don't know if the word Induna is correct, maybe Matabele, Mandebele chiefs. First of all, there was Umugulu Kumalo. Umugulu Kumalo, those of you who've read Salu's book, he was known to Salu previous to the rebellion, when Salu had his house outside of Essexvale, near to where Falcon College is today. And Salu says of him, he was a very genial, friendly, elderly sort of chap. But Umugulu was one of the prime movers behind the rebellion, and Salu, who often chatted to him, was totally oblivious to this. The other 2 principal Matabele were Manyakavula Masuku and Sikombo Nguni. And in the contemporary works, this is known as Sikombo's, the area south where we'll be going is known as Sikombo's stronghold. Okay, so we get to August the 5th. The column has assembled here. Their objective is to try and take Sikombo's stronghold. We'll be going down to the battle site. Don't want to go into too much detail at the moment. You have, most of you will have in front of you photocopies of 2 photographs. The first photograph is of, the upper photograph is of the fort.
That was on the 5th of August, and this fort was established on the 7th of August. So it's always a sort of a day to, and then you build your consolidation fort. There was also a fort built at Fort Inungu. So you've got Fort Inungu, you've got Fort Usher, you've got Fort Lagulu, and you're finally going to have another one on the Mshabez. So let's see what happened then after the Incantola. On the 31st of July, the main Malema camp to which they had fallen back was broken up. And the suppliers and stores were told to make tracks for Dawson Store on the Mzingwani, and there to await the main force. The main force came along through the hills. They fought a battle, a sort of skirmishy kind of battle, the Horseshoe Gorge of the Mshabez River, as they were on their way through. They slept out at night with no blankets, with not much in the way of food. They only had a little bit of the way of rations with them and their arms. So they had a pretty ghastly time from the 31st of July, 1st of August, 2nd of August, 3rd of August. It was really dreadful for them. On the afternoon of the 3rd of August, after fighting in the Horseshoe Gorge, they eventually got to Dawson's Store, where they were able to get a decent meal and have some blankets and have a decent night's sleep, in the open, but a decent night's sleep. So early on the morning of the 4th of August, they marched out of Dawson's store on the Mzingwane, and they came over cross country, and they arrived here, where they made camp, ready to have a go at the enemy who were in the hills over there. So that was the establishment of Sugarbush Camp. It was very near the Nseza River, spelt N-C-E-Z-A, so it's not the Nseza, it's the Nseza. They were very near to that river, so originally this was called Fort Nseza. I can't find out why the name was changed, but it is given as official that the name was changed to Fort Umlugulu as from the 22nd of September 1896. Now that wasn't a day on which an Indaba or anything took place, and I'm wondering whether they came back and consecrated the ceremony then, the cemetery then. I don't know, but it's queer that they kept on changing the name. Sugarbush Camp becomes Fort Nseza becomes Fort Umlugulu. So, on the morning of the 5th of August, you're going to have Sikombo's fight. Barry will tell you all about it. Started off with the guns going in, and the chap who was with the guns getting into trouble, the main party coming, getting into a lot more trouble, and finally Robin the Cape Boys coming round the other side, and Baden-Powell had gone right round the back and was up at the top signalling what to go on. That was Baden-Powell's bit in this particular fight. So you'll hear all about that in detail just now. So when the fight was all over, they come back weary after fighting all day from dawn on the 5th until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They straggle back to Sugarbush Camp, they get some food, they have a rest, they rest up on the 6th and on the 7th, they properly make the camp. They dig all the earthworks. Wasn't much fun being a soldier, you know. You got to fight with guns that didn't aim straight, and you had to build blooming forts. It was a jolly tough life. Anyway, I'm going to hand you over now.
It would appear that the gun mounted is a Maxim. It's difficult to say, looking at it now, what caliber. And it is on that ramp there, on the right here. The troops in front, the stand of arms, or the two stand of arms appear to be Martini Henry's. And if you can see it fairly clearly in this picture. More than likely, you would have a unit outside, perfectly mounted, so if there was any attack, you'd have a movable force which could outflank, circle left or right.